Tate, I'm so thrilled to talk Batgirl. I've absolutely loved the initial issue, and thanks to our friends at DC, I've had the opportunity to read issue two. We won't go into spoilers
Cool.
for today about that one, but I just wanted to say how much I really enjoyed the minute details of the
Mm.
tone that came through in the lettering, and just there was so much to love in this opening issue, and it was great that DC reached out to share some time. So thank you for making time to discuss in more detail.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. We all love Cass very much and trying to make the best book for her. So I'm glad you're enjoying it so much.
I'd love to start off. How did this book come to fruition? Was this a pitch from you? Were you approached by the editing team? Like, how did it start?
Yeah, so I had been working on Green Lantern Dark, my other DC series, for a while, and I was sitting down with the original editor of that, and we were having drinks at San Diego Comic Con and just talking about like what I want to do next, like because I loved working with DC, and we were both discussing like I wanted to be in Gotham just because I love Gotham, obviously, and we both kind of were like Cass Cain deserves like if I was gonna write a book, like I would want it to be Cass Cain Batgirl first of all, but at the same time he also was like Cass Cain deserves a book again, so it kind of like lined up. And we both chatted just like what we love about the character, what we see, like the potential we saw in her. I had always connected with her relationship with her parents, especially Lady Shiva, because I'm a huge Shiva fan. And just like how, and we talked a lot about how the like martial arts and like kung fu side of DC had kind of gone untouched for a while. Um, Josh Williamson did that great like Robin book, which was fun. But I was like, Cass is like the martial arts character, especially like within Gotham. And then one of the top martial arts characters across the DC universe. So if we want to, I just saw a lot of potential in expanding that world and those characters, and expanding Cass's world, and then developing a new supporting cast and kind of rogues gallery just for her. So we all just wanted to make a Cass King book, so it all just lined up perfectly. So it was kind of that, and then I developed a pitch, and we worked on that together. But that's kind of where it all came from.
Was your introduction to her in No Man's Land or a different point in her history?
Yeah, it was that original series, the 2000 early 2000 series, and I've become. It's funny because I've become good friends with James Tynion now, but his Detective Comics run I was following, and just I knew you could feel how much he loved Cass, and just how much care he took with her, like developing her relationship with Clayface and giving her that arc with Shiva. So I just always connected with the character, because I come from a large family and I'm the quiet kind of strange one who's kind of off by himself. So I always connected with her on that level. So yeah, I've always loved her and just seen the potential in her. So I feel very lucky and blessed to be like contributing to her as a character.
It's funny that you mentioned that run. I actually have it sitting on my shelf. I just
Oh,
got
I
the
see it.
omnibus.
Nice.
It's
Mine's over there
absolutely
somewhere behind
it's
me.
one of my favorite runs in recent years, pre Dawn of DC, and I just think that the characterization really did come through, and not only her story, but also Tim Drake, getting to come
Mm,
back to the forefront, and I think
yeah,
all of
yeah,
it just works so organically. So I'm thrilled that
yeah.
that was one of your favorites as well.
Yeah, Tim is James's number one boy, and Cass is my like number one. So yeah.
So as far as the art, I know you just talked about the kung fu aspect. I want to pronounce the name correctly. Takeshi,
Yeah,
your artist.
yeah,
Okay.
Takeshi.
How do you guys work as far as crafting the story for Cass? What's your dynamic like?
Yeah, so first of all, I don't know how we got Takeshi. My mind is still blown by that. We're like far into the series now, and every time pages come in, I'm like, how is this real? How is this happening? I grew up reading Takeshi's comics. I've never told him this. I'm sure I will, maybe when I meet him. But I like grew up in this like seventh, eighth grade reading Spider-Man Loves Mary Jane, which is like one of his big like first comics. So I'm just like how I've always been a fan of his work on Ms. Marvel and other stuff. I can't believe this is his first DC book. So I'm like, I'm glad we like grabbed him, and I feel honored that I'm writing his first DC book because he's such like a comics vet. Um, and this book is bringing out like a whole other side of Takeshi, which is like really cool to see. Just how much he's leaning into like the high octane action and the martial arts stuff. It feels like he's loving what he's doing and having so much fun. So I've picked up on like a lot of what he's just doing so well, which is like even the small character moments between Shiva, Cass, and other characters, but also how good he is at the martial arts choreography. So every issue, I'm now just trying to outdo the previous issue. So issue two, I really wanted to spotlight Vô Bi Nam, which is like a Vietnamese martial art. So I we in my script I like called for like like I tried to supply him with as much visuals and kind of the weapons they use. But issue two I was like, let's showcase this martial art and talk about some of its philosophy and how it can apply to these characters. Issue three has one of the most insane martial arts like action sequences I've seen in comics that I cannot wait for people to see. So it's really just like me being inspired by him, and hopefully trying to inspire him to like keep pushing himself. Because I don't know, he's working magic on the book, and it's really cool to see.
That magic really came through in the first issue and the second one in particular. I really appreciated how it felt fluid as far as the
Mm,
martial arts elements, and for that to come across in that style on the page is very interesting. And I think the unique spin that you guys have created for Cass's story in this incarnation really does complement that, that history, that background, from an action oriented, storyline. It doesn't feel like there's any time to rest, but at the same time,
yeah,
the I would say the flow is just so consistently impressive from page to page. So I just
yeah,
found myself really diving into, each panel and analyzing it a little bit more than I normally would, and I just
cool.
appreciated that as a reader.
Yeah, no, that's like what I always want is I want well, first of all, especially this series and this first arc, like I want Cass and Shiva to feel like they always have their back up against the wall. Like I don't want the action to kind of stop. They're constantly fighting. Um, but I also like I love writing comics that hopefully people there's enough in there per panel per page that people will take their time and like see all the different things that Takeshi or I are bringing to it, or like 'cause everything is there on purpose and like for a reason. And just Takeshi's character acting and how much this is about like how Cass views the world and how she reads people. So like I want people to like pay attention to like how Cass is reading them, but also like can we trust Shiva? And Takeshi is just playing up Shiva so well. Like he draws her perfectly, her characterization, how she like interacts with Cass. I don't know, he's just killing it.
I'd really like to draw attention to the lettering for a moment. I feel like it's one part of the comic book world that doesn't really get celebrated nearly enough. And
Mm-hmm.
as I was reading through the first issue and really the second one in particular, the inflections, the tone, and just the slight bolding to emphasize specific words and really draw attention to their, their interaction really it drew my attention more than it normally would. Can you talk about the impact of lettering for you and for your team as you were crafting this?
Yeah, well, Tom Napolitano is just one of the best in the business doing it right now. I specifically requested him. He's also lettering Green Lantern Dark, so I'm like, and I know writers kind of get attached to their letterer and just like, I'm like, this guy, like, he understands both graphically and just like how I see things laid out on a page. So like I can trust him with my words. So he's just become my guy because he's so good. Um, and especially how the sound effects he's handled throughout the series so far as well. Because sound effects can kind of a lot of the times they might not feel like they actually are a part of the page or the panel. It's kind of like this hard balance, but he really captures the texture and line work of Takeshi to make it feel like that sound effect was always a part of the book, which is like you want it to feel that way. But yeah, no, he I don't even he started doing Paladin's lettering, who is like a villain we introduced. But he did like these lines on Kaladin's ballooning, and he only did it a couple times and then stopped doing it. And I was like, no, that is like, let's give him a voice. So like he has this great intuition to kind of bring voice to characters. And then especially with characters like Cass and Shiva, like they don't waste words, especially Cass. So the word choice is so important, and like where she's inflicting tone is so important. So yeah, that word choice, where things are bolded, how Tom is laying out on the page, like it's very important and all very like there's purpose behind all of that for sure.
As far as the Unburied, without going into spoilers for your second issue, where did the inspiration come for this villainous threat for Cass?
So I love so Cass's long-term story arc, even beyond these first six issues, is kind of gonna be about family, both found family and also her blood-related family. Um, just because I she's at such an interesting center point where she's descended by like Shiva, the world's one of the world's greatest fighters, and David Cain, who's um called the world's greatest assassin, but then been taken in by Batman, who's the world's greatest detective. So she is just descended by so many world greats that she's like, there's so much to explore there, and how much of it comes from that like nurture versus nature stuff. So her long term arc is about just like family, familial bonds, found family, of course. So I wanted the first threat to also be not like about because Calden in the issue, this new villain we've introduced and who's kind of this leader of the Unburied, he talks about how he's doing this for his people, and there's that kind of that obligation to his people, to his family. So I knew the threat needed to be a threat that was also familial related, um, and I wanted them to be cool, badass, like monk ninja warriors. I needed those. Um, and so that was kind of the root of it. And obviously, the fact that they're called the Unburied is a bit on the nose because so much of Cass and Shiva's relationship is like below the surface level, very buried. Like these things they haven't confronted or brought up. So this is a threat from the past that is now coming forward, and it forces Cass and Shiva to kind of unbury a lot of their own emotions and relationship issues.
So obviously, with the internet, everyone does their own dissection when it comes to a new book. Is there any aspect of
Yeah,
the first issue that you were surprised that people haven't picked up on yet, or anything that is a personal highlight for you that you wanted to spotlight?
honestly, the coolest thing coming out of the first issue is how much everybody connected with Cass's internal narration, and how because I really wanted the format of the book to shape her view and her point of view. So adding those like insights of like, because Cass reads people constantly. She reads a room. She reads people's next move. She reads their emotions. She reads whether they're lying or telling the truth. So I wanted the comic to reflect that. Like she's constantly reading people. So having people react so favorably to how her narration functions as like kind of these one worded things of what she's picking up on with like a visual cue of an inset or like an extreme close up or whatever. Seeing how people immediately just picked up on what we were doing with that and how that just reflects how Cass views the world. I think that was like the coolest thing, to just see people love so much. So like that just reinforced me like, yeah, we're gonna keep pushing this concept, and just shape like the series itself around how Cass interacts with the world. Because
Well,
that's her superpower. That's what makes her like so like who she is.
having read your first two issues, I think you do that very well, and you continue that element into the second one. So I'm thrilled to see where the story continues.